They say the moon goddess only answers the songs of the broken-hearted once in 1,000 years. But when Seraphina Nightwhisper, the pack's most worthless Omega, sang her sorrow to the crimson moon, the Alpha King himself appeared at her door before the first light of dawn, ready to burn down kingdoms for the girl who didn't even know she was already his queen. The bitter pre-dawn wind cut through Seraphina's threadbare cloak as she scrubbed the packhouse steps of the Ironwood pack, her raw fingers leaving bloody streaks on the frost-covered stone. Around her, the other wolves slept in warm beds, dreaming their peaceful dreams, while she, the packless orphan they'd grudgingly taken in, worked through another sleepless night. "Missed a spot, Sarah? Nobody," a cruel voice echoed above her. Seraphina didn't need to look up to know it was Thessaly Goldmane, the Beta's daughter, dumping her morning wash water directly onto the steps Seraphina had just cleaned. The scalding water splashed across her hands, but Seraphina had learned long ago that showing pain only fed their entertainment. "I'll clean it again," Seraphina whispered, her voice barely audible, a voice that hadn't spoken above a whisper in 3 years, not since the night her parents died defending a pack that now treated their daughter worse than rogues. But Thessaly wasn't finished. She grabbed Seraphina's chin, forcing those unusual silver eyes that marked her as different, wrong, cursed to meet her own. "Tomorrow's the harvest moon ceremony. You know what that means, don't you?" Seraphina's heart clenched. Of course she knew. Tomorrow, Aldrich Stormclaw, the future alpha of Ironwood Pack, and the man she'd foolishly loved since childhood, would officially reject her as his mate. Everyone knew it. The servants whispered about it. The warriors placed bets on how quickly he'd say the words. "He's going to choose me," Thessaly continued, her perfectly manicured nails digging into Seraphina's jaw. "And when I'm Luna, the first thing I'll do is cast you out, but until then—" She released Seraphina with a shove that sent her sprawling into the dirty water. "You'll scrub every stone in this packhouse until it gleams." As Thessaly's laughter faded into the packhouse, Seraphina remained on her knees in the frigid water. Something strange, stirring in her chest, not the familiar ache of humiliation, but something else, something that felt like music. She pressed her hand to her heart, alarmed. She hadn't felt music there since she was barely a year old, the night her mother died defending the pack, when her mother's last words were, "Your voice is your power, little moon singer. But promise me never sing where they can hear you. Never sing until you find the one whose soul echoes yours." But who would ever echo someone like me? Seraphina thought bitterly. Seraphina! The packhouse doors burst open, and Aldrich himself stood there, his massive frame blocking out the light from within. Even at dawn, even covered in dirty water, her traitorous heart still skipped at the sight of him, 6 feet 4 inches of carved muscle, jet black hair, those storm-gray eyes that had once looked at her with kindness when they were children, before her parents died, before she became nothing. "My study, now," he commanded, not even looking at her directly, as if she were beneath his gaze. Seraphina struggled to her feet, water dripping from her tattered dress. As she followed him through the packhouse, she caught her reflection in a mirror, pale skin, made paler by exhaustion, those cursed silver eyes that marked her as an anomaly, long midnight hair that she kept hidden under a servant's cap. She looked like what she was, nobody. Aldrich's study reeked of authority and power. He sat behind his massive oak desk while she stood, still dripping, on his expensive carpet. "The ceremony is tomorrow," he said without preamble. "You know what needs to happen?" Her whisper came out cracked. "Yes, Alpha, future Alpha." he corrected sharply. Then, for just a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Regret? Memory? It's for the best, Sira. He paused, searching for words that wouldn't cut too deep. Not suited for the role of Luna. Thessaly has been trained since birth. She has the bloodline, the strength, the connections we need. And I have nothing, Seraphina finished silently. I need you to make this easy, Aldrich continued, his voice hardening again. When I reject you tomorrow, you accept immediately. No scene, no tears. You simply bow and accept. Then you'll be relocated to the Omega quarters permanently if you're lucky. Maybe someone will take you as a third chance mate someday. The words hung in the air like poison. A third chance mate, the absolute bottom of their society, mated only after someone had lost two mates already, usually to an old wolf who needed a caretaker, not a lover. Do you understand? His alpha command rippled through the words. Yes, future alpha. Good. You're dismissed. And Sarah? He called as she reached the door. Wear something decent tomorrow. I don't want the other packs thinking we mistreat our Omegas. The irony of his words followed her out. As Seraphina stumbled back to her cramped quarters in the packhouse cellar, that strange music in her chest grew stronger, like something wild clawing to get out. She collapsed onto her thin mattress, and for the first time in 3 years, she felt the overwhelming urge to sing. No, she told herself. You promised, Mother. Never sing where they can hear. But the moon couldn't tell anyone, could it? Tomorrow night, after Aldrich crushed her heart in front of 5 packs, after Thessaly claimed her place, after everything was lost tomorrow night, she would sing to the moon one last time. She didn't know that 3 territories away, the Alpha King suddenly stopped mid-sentence. During a war council, his eyes flashing gold, as an inexplicable pull tugged at his very soul, whispering a single word. Soon. The harvest moon hung swollen and silver above the Ironwood Pack's ceremonial grounds, though primordial texts warned it could turn to blood when a sacred bond was severed. 5 neighboring packs had gathered to witness what everyone already knew would happen. Seraphina stood at the edge of the crowd in the decent dress. The pack had provided a plain gray thing that hung loosely on her too, thin frame trying to make herself invisible among the Omegas. The moment we've all been waiting for, Elder Mordecai's voice boomed across the grounds. Future Alpha Aldrich Stormclaw will now identify his fated mate. Seraphina watched as Aldrich stepped into the ceremonial circle, magnificent in his formal black attire, his presence commanding every eye. The mate bond pull was excruciating. Every cell in her body screamed to run to him, to claim what the moon goddess had decreed as hers. She dug her nails into her palms until they bled, holding herself back. She noticed Luna Margaret, Aldrich's mother, wasn't present, still lost in her grief-induced illness that had kept her confined for 3 years. Unaware of how the pack had descended into cruelty without her gentle guidance, Aldrich's eyes swept across the crowd, paused on her for a fraction of a second, then moved to where Thessaly stood in a stunning crimson gown, her golden hair shining like spun sunlight. I sense my mate, Aldrich announced, his voice carrying across the silent grounds. Seraphina's heart hammered as he walked not toward Thessaly, but toward the Omega section, toward her. Whispers erupted like wildfire. He stopped directly in front of her, and for one impossible moment, hope bloomed in her chest. His storm-gray eyes met her silver ones, and she saw it all there, the recognition, the pull, the memory of 2 children who once played together in these very woods before rank and death tore them apart. Seraphina Night Whisper, he said, loud enough for all 5 packs to hear. You are my fated mate, the crowd gasped. Thessaly's face went white with rage, but Aldrich wasn't finished. And I, Aldrich Stormclaw, future alpha of the Ironwood Pack, hereby reject you as my mate and Luna. The words hit her like physical blows, each one tearing something vital inside her. The mate bond, so newly acknowledged, began shredding apart, sending agony through every nerve. I reject you, he continued, his voice steady and cold, for the good of the pack, for you lack the strength, the breeding, and the qualities required of a Luna. You are unsuited for this role in every conceivable way. Seraphina's knees buckled, but she forced herself to remain standing. The crowd was deathly silent, watching her, waiting for her to speak the acceptance that would complete the rejection. Some looked sympathetic, most looked unsurprised, and a few, like Thessaly, looked triumphant. Above them, the silver moon began to bleed crimson at its edges, as if responding to the severing bond. Seraphina's whisper was so quiet that wolves strained to hear. I, Seraphina, Night Whisper, accept. A howl suddenly split the night, not from anyone present, but from somewhere deep in the forest. It was unlike any howl she'd ever heard, primeval, primal, and filled with such fury that several wolves involuntarily shifted in response. The temperature dropped 10 degrees in an instant, and the ceremonial fires flickered, as if bowing to an unseen presence. Elder Mordecai went rigid. That's impossible. That howl pattern belongs to... But before he could finish, the sound cut off as abruptly as it began, leaving everyone unsettled. Continue, Aldrich commanded, though Seraphina noticed his hands were now clenched into fists. I accept your rejection, Seraphina finished, and the moment the words left her lips, the bond snapped completely. The pain drove her to her knees this time, and no one moved to help her. Above, the moon turned fully crimson, bathing everything in blood-red light. Aldrich immediately turned to Thessaly, not sparing Seraphina another glance. Thessaly Goldmane, I choose you as my chosen mate and Luna of the Ironwood Pack. The crowd erupted in celebration as Thessaly flew into his arms, their kiss passionate and performative. But Seraphina heard none of it over the roaring in her ears, saw nothing through the tears she refused to let fall. Somehow, she made it to her feet. Somehow, she walked through the celebrating crowd, their revelry a blur around her. She heard fragments, knew it would happen. Omega thinking she could be Luna. Better this way. Where's she going? She didn't stop walking until she reached the highest hill outside Pack territory, where a primordial white oak stood alone beneath the blood moon. This was the place her mother used to bring her as an infant, the place where she'd first learned she had a voice that could make the stars weep. The music in her chest wasn't asking anymore. It was demanding, clawing, fighting to get out. Seraphina looked up at the crimson moon, opened her mouth, and for the first time in 3 years, she sang. The first note that emerged wasn't a whisper, but a crystalline sound that seemed to make the very air shimmer. It was wordless, pure emotion given voice, grief, betrayal, loneliness, and underneath it all, a longing so deep it could crack mountains. She didn't know that her voice was carrying on frequencies only the most primeval wolves could hear. She didn't know that across 3 territories, the Alpha King Zephyr Shadowmourne had just shattered a wine glass in his hand, his eyes blazing gold, as that pull in his soul became a roar. She didn't know that she was singing the oldest song in creation, the song of a true mate calling to their other half. She only knew that she couldn't stop. The song poured from Seraphina like blood from a mortal wound, each note painting silver streams in the air that only she could see. She sang of mothers lost to protecting ungrateful packs, of fathers who died as heroes but were forgotten like villains, of little girls who once believed in fairy tales before learning they were meant to be servants, not princesses. She didn't notice when the forest went completely silent. No crickets, no owls, nothing daring to compete with her voice. She didn't see the figure materializing from the shadows until he spoke. Stop. The command hit her with the force of an avalanche. Not an alpha command, something infinitely more powerful. Her voice cut off mid-note, and she spun around to find a man standing 10 feet away, except he wasn't just a man. He was death given form, power made flesh, standing at nearly 7 feet with ink-black hair that seemed to absorb moonlight. His eyes weren't just gold, they were molten, primordial, burning with an intensity that should have terrified her. He wore all black, but it wasn't modern clothing. It was something older, wilder, with traces of armor that belonged to a different age. But it was his presence that stole her breath. It pressed against her like a physical thing, making the air thick, electric. This wasn't just an alpha. This was something else entirely. Do you have any idea? His voice was controlled fury wrapped in velvet. What you've just done? Seraphina stumbled backward, her back hitting the oak tree. I was just... Who are you? He took a step closer, and she realized the moonlight wasn't reflecting off him. It was bending around him, as if even celestial bodies recognized his dominion. You were just singing a summoning song that hasn't been heard in 3 centuries. You were just calling to every primordial bloodline within 1,000 miles. You were just... He stopped abruptly, his nostrils flaring. His entire body went rigid. You're bleeding. Seraphina looked down at her palms, where her nails had left crescents of blood. It's nothing. He moved. 1 second he was 10 feet away. The next he had her wrists in his hands, his touch sending electricity shooting up her arms. But it wasn't pain, it was something else. Something that made the broken mate bond feel like a paper cut compared to a lightning strike. Nothing? His thumbs traced the wounds with unexpected gentleness. You're rejected, shattered, and bleeding under a blood moon that's listening, and you call it nothing? His eyes snapped to hers. What's your name? Seraphina, she whispered, caught in those burning gold eyes. Seraphina Nightwhisper. Something flickered across his face, recognition. Impossible. She'd never seen him before. She would have remembered someone who felt like standing next to a barely controlled wildfire. Nightwhisper. He said it like he was tasting the word. Of course. The last Moonsinger bloodline. I thought your kind were extinct. My kind? She tried to pull her wrists back, but his hold, while gentle, was immovable. I'm just an Omega. His laugh was dark, bitter. An Omega? Is that what they told you? Is that what you believed? He released her wrists but didn't step back. Tell me, Omega, why do you think your voice can make primeval oaks weep silver tears? Seraphina glanced at the tree behind her and gasped. Silver sap was running down the bark where she'd been singing, gleaming like liquid starlight. That's not. I didn't. You did, just as your mother did before you and her mother before her. Your mother bound her power 20 years ago when she mated your father. She died defending the pack when you were barely a year old, but her bound power passed to you, waiting. His expression darkened. They kept you ignorant, broken, convinced you were worthless when you're... He cut himself off, jaw clenching. When I'm what? She demanded, finding courage she didn't know existed. Instead of answering, he tilted his head, listening to something she couldn't hear. His expression turned lethal. We have company. Your pack is coming, led by that pathetic whelp who rejected you. My identity must remain hidden for now. Panic flared. I need to go. If they find me here, talking to a strange wolf, they won't touch you. The certainty in his voice was absolute. You don't understand. I'm nobody. I have no rank, no protection. He moved closer, and suddenly she could smell him pine smoke and winter storms and something primordially wild. You're under my protection now. Your protection. You don't even know me. You can't can't I? His hand rose to her face, not quite touching, hovering an inch from her cheek. Do you know what a summoning song is, little singer? It's a call that can only be answered by one wolf. Your true mate, your equal. The world tilted. But Aldrich was my mate. That boy, the contempt in his voice could have frozen flame. He was a lesson, nothing more. A cruel joke from fate to teach you the difference between what they tell you to want and what you're destined to have. Voices approached through the trees, Aldrich's commanding tone, Thessaly's shrill demands, and now she could hear Alpha Thorn's deeper growl among them. I have to go, she whispered urgently. No, he said simply. You sang to the moon, Seraphina Night Whisper, and the moon sent me to answer. When that sun rises in 6 hours, everything you know will change. Remember, I am close, even when you cannot see me. How do you know? But he was already gone, vanished like smoke, leaving only the scent of winter storms and a promise that felt carved into her very bones. The pack burst through the trees seconds later, Aldrich at the lead with his father Alpha Thorn beside him. But Seraphina barely noticed them. She was too busy wondering who he really was. What were you doing out here? Aldrich demanded, scanning the hilltop with predatory alertness. Behind him, Thessaly clung to his arm while 6 pack warriors and Alpha Thorn formed a semicircle around Seraphina. I asked you a question, Omega. His alpha command rippled through the words, but something strange happened. Instead of compelling her to answer, the command slid off her like water off glass. Everyone noticed. The warriors exchanged uncertain glances. I was saying goodbye, Seraphina finally answered, her voice still a whisper, but steadier than before. The mysterious wolf's presence lingered like armor around her, invisible but undeniable. Goodbye? Thessaly laughed shrilly. Planning to go rogue? How pathetic. You wouldn't last a night. The silver tree. One of the warriors, Garrett, interrupted with barely contained awe. Alpha, look at the oak. Everyone turned to see the silver tears still gleaming on the primordial bark, and the temperature seemed to drop another degree. Elder Mordecai pushed through the group, his weathered face pale. Impossible, he breathed, approaching the tree with trembling hands. This is Moonsinger magic. But the last Moonsinger died 20 years ago. All eyes turned to Seraphina. You, Mordecai pointed a shaking finger at her. Your mother was Celeste Night Whisper. She could sing to the moon, but she bound her power when she mated your father. We thought the gift died with her. Bound her power? Seraphina's whisper carried confusion. She never said, because we ordered her silence. Alpha Thorn interrupted, his scarred face grim. Moonsingers are dangerous. Their songs can drive wolves mad, summon creatures from the old times, even challenge alpha commands. Your mother agreed to bind her gift in exchange for sanctuary. But binding requires consent, Mordecai muttered, still studying the tree. If Seraphina's power is manifesting now, the rejection, Thessaly said suddenly, her pretty face twisting with realization. Rejecting a moonsinger breaks any binding. You absolute fool, Aldrich. Do you know what you've— A howl cut through her words, the same primeval, furious sound from the ceremony, but closer now, much closer. Form a defensive circle, Alpha Thorn commanded, but his voice shook. That's a sovereign's call, but there hasn't been a sovereign Alpha in our territories for 300 years, Mordecai finished, his face white as bone. The last one was Zephyr Shadowmourne, the Alpha King of the Northern Territories, but the histories say he vanished after the Great War. Another howl, this time from the opposite direction. Then another, and another. They were surrounded. What did you do? Aldrich grabbed Seraphina's shoulders, his fingers digging in painfully. Who did you call? Before she could answer, shadows exploded around them. Not metaphorical shadows, actual darkness that moved like living things, swallowing the moonlight. The pack warriors shifted instantly, but their snarls turned to whimpers as pressure descended like a mountain falling. He emerged from the shadows like he was born from them, the mysterious wolf. But now she could see him clearly in his full glory, and the sight stole what little breath she had left. The histories say what I wanted them to say, the wolf spoke, his voice carrying ageless authority. Zephyr Shadowmourne never died. He simply waited. Impossible. Alpha Thorn dropped to his knees, his head bowed. You're supposed to be dead. The records. The Alpha King stood in partial transformation, neither fully man nor wolf, but something between, something other. Power emanated from him in visible waves, making the air shimmer. Take your hands off her. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. The words carried such lethal promise that Aldrich released Seraphina instantly, stumbling backward. You rejected a moonsinger, your own true mate. Do you have any conception of what you've done? I didn't know, Aldrich started. Silence. The word knocked everyone except Seraphina to their knees. You knew she was yours. You felt the bond. You chose politics over the sacred gift, and in doing so, his smile was all predator. You released her from your pathetic pack's authority. She's still our Omega, Thessaly tried to protest from the ground. Zephyr's gaze shifted to her, and she screamed, clutching her head. Omega? This girl's bloodline is older than your entire pack combined. Her ancestors sang the first wolves into existence. She is royalty you're not worthy to serve. He moved to Seraphina then, his expression softening in a way that transformed his terrible beauty into something almost gentle. Are you hurt? I don't understand, she whispered, overwhelmed. Any of this. You will. He lifted her hand, studying the healing crescents on her palms. Did you know, little singer, that when a moon singer calls under a blood moon after a rejection, she can claim any wolf who answers? Gasps echoed around them. Seraphina's eyes widened. Claim? His smile was dark honey and timeless promises. You sang, I answered. By the old laws. That makes me yours, if you want me. That's preposterous. Aldrich struggled against the invisible force holding him down. She's nobody. She can't claim an Alpha King. Zephyr's eyes flashed pure gold. Watch her. But before anyone could respond, more shadows materialized, 6 wolves stepping from darkness itself, each emanating power that marked them as primordial alphas. My lord, one addressed Zephyr, though his eyes fixed on Seraphina with wonder. Is it true? A moonsinger lives? Not just lives. Zephyr responded to his wolf, though his molten gaze remained on Seraphina. She sang the summoning song under a blood moon. After a rejection, The 6 primordial alphas went utterly still. Then, as one, they dropped to one knee facing Seraphina. "What are they doing?" she whispered, taking an instinctive step back, only to find Zephyr behind her, his presence a wall of controlled power. "Showing respect to the one who could command us all if she knew how," he murmured near her ear, his breath sending shivers down her spine. "Moon singers don't just sing, precious one. They reshape reality with their voice. And a moon singer who's been rejected, whose power has been unbound." His chuckle was dark velvet. "Let's just say kingdoms have fallen for less." "Lies!" Thessaly shrieked from where she knelt, fighting against the pressure. "She's weak, pathetic. She can't even shift properly. I've seen her try." Seraphina flinched, the familiar shame rising. It was true her wolf form was small, silver-white, instead of the normal browns and grays, considered defective by pack standards. "Can't shift properly?" One of the primordial alphas, scarred and massive, raised his head. "My lord, may I?" Zephyr nodded, and the alpha stood, approaching Seraphina slowly, like one might approach a sacred shrine. "Little singer, your wolf isn't defective. She's pure. Moon singers don't shift like regular wolves. They become something closer to the original forms, the ones from before we diluted our blood with human weakness." "Show her," Zephyr commanded softly. "Show her what she is." "I can't," Seraphina whispered, years of failed attempts crushing her. "I've tried." "You tried to shift like them." Zephyr's hand settled on her shoulder, and power flowed from his touch like liquid starlight. "Try singing your wolf free instead." "Singing my wolf?" "Your voice is your power. Everything you are flows from it." His thumb traced the curve of her shoulder blade. "Sing, Seraphina. Let her out." She wanted to protest that it was impossible, that she'd tried for years, but something in his voice, in his touch, made her believe. She closed her eyes, felt for that music in her chest, and let out a single, pure note. The transformation didn't hurt. That was the first shock. Every shift she'd attempted had been agony, bones breaking and refusing to set right. This was like becoming liquid moonlight, reforming as something that had always existed beneath her skin. When she opened her eyes, the world had shifted to sharper focus, scents and sounds crystalline clear. She looked down to see paws of pure silver white, larger and more elegant than any omegas should be. But it was the gasps around her that made her look at her shadow. Wings. Her shadow had wings. "Blessed moon goddess," Elder Mordecai breathed. "A lunar wolf. They're not extinct." "Impossible!" Aldrich had finally broken free of the compulsion, surging to his feet. His face was twisted with something between rage and regret. "She's mine, my mate, my rejection to give or take back." "Take back?" Zephyr laughed, and the sound made trees shudder. "You think you can reclaim what you so publicly discarded?" Aldrich's eyes were desperate now, seeing Seraphina's true form, understanding what he'd thrown away. His wolf was howling in agony at their mistake. "The rejection isn't complete. She accepted under duress. The pack laws state." "Pack laws?" Zephyr moved so fast he blurred, suddenly standing between Aldrich and Seraphina's wolf form. "I wrote the first pack laws, whelp, and they clearly state that a moon singer's mate bond, once rejected, can never be reclaimed. It's not just broken, it's annihilated." He turned to Seraphina then, his expression softening. "Shift back, beloved. There's more you need to know." She wanted to ask how, but her body seemed to know, flowing back to human form as easily as breathing. Except now, she stood taller, her silver eyes brighter. Her very presence changed. The meek Omega was gone, replaced by something luminous and untamed. Pretty tricks, Thessaly spat, though her voice trembled. But power means nothing without breeding, without training. She doesn't even know pack hierarchy, let alone how to be a Luna. Luna? Zephyr's smile was sharp as broken glass. Who said anything about her being a Luna? He pulled something from the shadows themselves, a crown of midnight black metal, interwoven with silver moonstone, primordial and humming with power. A Luna serves an alpha, he continued, his voice carrying across the hilltop. But a moon singer who claims an alpha king? She doesn't become a Luna. He stepped closer to Seraphina, the crown gleaming in his hands. She becomes the alpha queen. No, Alpha Thorn whispered, understanding dawning in his eyes. The old laws. If she claims you, if you accept, then both territories. All 7 territories, Zephyr corrected. Every pack from here to the northern wastes would bow to her song. And the High Council knows this. Their executioners are probably already on their way. They always come when old magic stirs. His attention returned to Seraphina, and for the first time since appearing, she saw uncertainty flicker in those ageless eyes. But the choice is yours, little singer. You can walk away, reject my protection, refuse the Taceria, claim, and make your own path. Seraphina looked at the crown, at him, at her former pack, kneeling in terror and awe. Or? She asked, her voice no longer a whisper. His grin was pure wolf. Or you let me kneel before the first woman in 3 centuries who could bring me to my knees with a single note. You can't seriously be considering this. Aldrich's voice cracked with desperation, his wolf's agony bleeding through. Seraphina, you don't know him. He's the Shadow King, the monster from the old stories. He's killed thousands. Only those who deserved it, Zephyr said mildly, though his eyes remained on Seraphina. And I've saved tens of thousands more. But please, do tell her more about monsters. Boy who rejected his mate for political gain. Seraphina stepped forward, her hand reaching toward the crown, then stopping. Why did you really come? You can't tell me an Alpha King appears just because someone sang a pretty song. For the first time, vulnerability flickered across Zephyr's features. For 300 years I've heard nothing but silence. Do you understand what that means? An Alpha King without a queen is half mad on the best days. But a sovereign alpha without his moon singer? He shook his head. I stopped sleeping decades ago because the dreams were nothing but emptiness. I stopped feeling anything beyond duty and rage. Then tonight, he lifted his hand, and shadows danced between his fingers. Tonight, I heard you sing my true name. I didn't sing any names. Not with words. With your soul. Every moon singer has one wolf they're born to sing for, one soul that matches their frequency. You sang pain and loneliness and betrayal, but underneath it all, you sang recognition. You knew me before we ever met. That's impossible, she whispered. But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't. She'd felt him in her chest her whole life, a missing piece she'd tried to fill with Aldrich's cold affection. Is it? He stepped closer, the crown still offered between them. Tell me you don't feel it. Tell me your wolf isn't crying out for mine right now. She couldn't. Her wolf was practically howling, straining toward him with a desperation that should have frightened her. If I accept, she said slowly, what happens to them? She gestured to her former pack. Whatever you decide, Zephyr replied. That's what it means to be Alpha Queen. Their fates. would be yours to command. Thessaly let out a strangled laugh. She's too weak, too soft. She couldn't even stand up to me, let alone command. Seraphina's head snapped toward her, and for the first time in her life, she didn't lower her gaze. Be quiet. The words weren't loud, weren't even particularly forceful, but Thessaly's mouth snapped shut, her eyes widening in shock. She physically couldn't speak. Interesting, Zephyr murmured, his smile growing. You're already learning. Command is in your blood, Silver Heart. You just needed someone to show you it was there. The pack would never accept it, Alpha Thorn protested, though his voice was weak. And Omega becoming queen. Former Omega, one of the primordial alphas, corrected. The moment her mate rejected her, she became packless, free, and a free moonsinger can choose any pack she wishes. Or create her own. Create her own? Seraphina's eyes widened. Zephyr nodded. 7 territories worth of lone wolves, rejected wolves, and forgotten bloodlines would follow a moonsinger's call. You could build something entirely new. Or, he lifted the crown slightly, you could accept what's already yours and transform the existing order from within. A commotion in the tree line drew everyone's attention. More wolves were arriving, not just from Ironwood, but from all 5 packs who'd attended the ceremony. Word was spreading like wildfire. Among them, Seraphina spotted familiar faces, other Omegas who'd been tormented, overlooked wolves who'd never fit the traditional hierarchies, even some betas who'd questioned the rigid system. They were all looking at her, not with the disgust or pity she was used to, but with something that looked like hope. They came because they heard you sing, Zephyr said quietly. Even from miles away, every wolf with even a drop of primordial blood felt it. Do you understand what that means? She was beginning to. The music in her chest wasn't just her power, it was a call to all those who'd been silenced, overlooked, rejected. If I say yes, she said, meeting his molten gaze. I want conditions. His eyebrows rose, and several wolves gasped at her audacity. You would negotiate with an Alpha King? I would negotiate with my potential mate, she corrected, and his eyes flashed with approval. Name them. The Omegas get equal treatment. The rigid hierarchies get reformed. And anyone who's been rejected unfairly gets a second chance. And if the Alphas resist? She smiled then, remembering how easily she'd silenced Thessaly. Then I'll sing them a lullaby they won't wake from until they learn better. Zephyr's laughter was rich and dark and proud. There she is, the queen I've been waiting for. He knelt then, the Alpha King of 7 territories dropping to one knee, offering up the crown. Seraphina Nightwhisper, last of the moon singers, will you accept your throne? The blood moon pulsed overhead. Her former pack held their breath, and Seraphina reached for her destiny. The moment Seraphina's fingers touched the crown, the world exploded into silver fire. Power primeval, wild, and infinite rushed through her veins like liquid moonlight. Every suppressed memory, every bound gift, every inherited ability from generations of moonsingers flooded her consciousness at once. She saw her mother's true form, her grandmother's battles, the first moonsinger who sang the original wolves from starlight itself. Seraphina! Aldrich's voice seemed to come from very far away. Don't do this. You don't understand what you're becoming. But she did understand. For the first time in her life, everything made perfect sense. When the silver fire faded, she stood transformed. The crown hadn't just adorned her, it had awakened her. Her midnight hair now held threads of pure silver. Her eyes glowed with inner light. And most shocking of all, Markings appeared on her skin, primordial runes that told the history of her bloodline in a language older than words. By the old gods, Elder Mordecai fell to his knees. The Luna prophecy. When the rejected rises with the crown of night, when the silenced one sings the timeless right, then shall the old ways crumble and fall, and the forgotten shall answer her call. You knew. Seraphina's voice had changed too, still hers, but layered with harmonics that made reality shiver. You knew there was a prophecy about me? We suspected, Alpha Thorn admitted from where he knelt. Your mother, she was too powerful. We convinced her that binding her gifts would protect you. We lied. You feared her. Zephyr rose from his knee, standing beside Seraphina as her equal. Just as you fear her daughter now. Please, Thessaly begged, finally able to speak again. Seraphina, I'm sorry. We were just following pack tradition. Tradition. Seraphina tasted the word like poison. Was it tradition when you poured wolfsbane in my wash water? Was it tradition when you had the warriors corner me during my first heat, terrifying me for sport? Was it tradition when you killed my pet rabbit because I dared to smile at Aldrich? Each accusation made Thessaly paler. The gathered wolves murmured in shock. Many hadn't known the extent of the abuse. I didn't mean, Thessaly started. Silence. Seraphina's command rippled with such force that birds fled from trees miles away. You will speak when I allow it. She turned to address all the gathered wolves, her voice carrying impossibly far. For 20 years I believed I was worthless, weak, defective. How many others here have been told the same lies? A young Omega, near the back, raised her hand, trembling. Then another, and another. Soon, dozens of wolves, not just Omegas, but smaller betas, older wolves. Anyone who didn't fit the perfect mold raised their hands. No more, Seraphina declared. The old hierarchy dies tonight. You can't, Alpha Thorn protested. The structure has existed for 1,000 years, and for 1,000 years it has crushed the spirits of those deemed unworthy. Zephyr interjected, his shadows beginning to writhe. I've waited centuries for someone with the power to change it. Is that why you really answered my song? Seraphina asked him. To use me for revolution? He turned to her fully, and for a moment his ageless mask slipped. I answered because I've been dead inside for 300 years, and your voice made me remember what it felt like to be alive. The revolution is just a pleasant bonus. Before she could respond, a new voice cut through the night, young, desperate, and familiar. Sarah? A small figure pushed through the crowd. It was Melody, Thessaly's younger sister, barely 16, and the only one who'd ever shown Seraphina kindness, sneaking her food when punishments meant starvation. Melody, get back, Thessaly shrieked, but the young wolf ignored her sister, approaching Seraphina with tears streaming. Is it true? Are you really the moon singer? Can you really change things? Melody, what? I'm an Omega too, Melody announced, and the crowd gasped. Mother hid it, with suppressants and false papers. She couldn't bear the shame of 2 Omega daughters. But I'm tired of pretending. Thessaly's face crumpled. You stupid girl. Do you know what you've just done to our family's reputation? The same thing you did to Sarah's heart every day for years? Melody shot back, then knelt before Seraphina. I pledge myself to the Alpha Queen, if you'll have me. One by one, others began kneeling. Not the Alphas, not yet, but the forgotten ones, the rejected ones, the ones who'd never quite fit. Each pledge made Seraphina's crown glow brighter. Aldrich watched with growing anguish. his wolf howling louder with each passing moment. "This is madness!" he finally exploded. "She has no experience, no training, no idea how to lead." "Then I'll learn," Serafina said simply. "With advisors who value wisdom over strength, compassion over cruelty. And if we refuse?" Aldrich challenged. "If the established packs reject your authority?" Serafina smiled, and it was sharp as winter. "Then you'll learn why moonsingers were feared enough to bind." She opened her mouth and sang a single note. Every wolf, except Zephyr and his primordial guard, dropped, pressing against the earth as something primeval in their blood recognized a power older than alphas. When she stopped, the silence was deafening. "Enough games." A new voice snarled from the forest's edge. A massive wolf emerged, scarred, primeval, and emanating malevolence. Behind him, 20 more wolves materialized, all bearing the mark of the Bloodstone Pack, the cruelest in the 7 territories. "Ragnar Bloodstone." Zephyr's voice dropped to sub-zero. "You dare show your face?" The wolf shifted to human form, a giant of a man with dead eyes and ritual scars covering his body. "I heard a moonsinger had awakened. Came to see if it was true or just another fairy tale." His gaze locked onto Serafina with predatory interest. "She's pretty enough. She'll make a fine addition to my collection." "Collection?" Serafina asked, though something in her already knew. "Ragnar collects powerful females." One of Zephyr's guards spat. "Keeps them bound in his fortress, forced to bear his offspring." "Had your mother on my list before she died," Ragnar said casually, and Serafina's vision went red. "Moonsinger bloodline would breed strong pups. You'll do nicely as a replacement." The rage that filled Serafina wasn't hot. It was Arctic, absolute, and older than mountains. When she spoke, her voice harmonized with something beyond mortal comprehension. "You want me?" Each word made the air crystallize. "Then come claim me." Ragnar laughed and lunged with impossible speed. He never reached her. Serafina sang not a note, but a word in the first language, the one that existed before speech. Ragnar froze mid-leap, his body suspended in air as reality itself obeyed her voice. "Impossible," he choked out, struggling against invisible bonds. "You threatened my mother." Serafina walked closer, each step leaving frost on the ground. "You've enslaved innocent wolves. You represent everything poisonous about the old ways. Kill her!" His wolves howled, charging. Zephyr moved to intervene, but Serafina raised her hand, stopping him. "No, they need to see." She sang again, weaving multiple notes that shouldn't exist in the same octave. The charging wolves didn't just stop. They began transforming against their will, shifting between human and wolf in a painful cycle that left them writhing. "Mercy!" one screamed. "Like the mercy you showed your captives?" Serafina's crown blazed. "But I'm not you." She changed her song, and the wolves' pain ceased. Instead, they began to weep great, soul-deep sobs, as her music forced them to feel every ounce of suffering they'd inflicted on others. "Please," Ragnar begged, tears streaming down his scarred face. "Make it stop." "The females you've captured," Serafina commanded. "Where are they?" "Northern Fortress, 3 miles past the canyon." She looked at Zephyr's guards. "Free them. Bring them here." They vanished into shadows instantly. "As for you," she studied Ragnar with cold assessment, "death would be too simple." She sang once more, and Ragnar screamed as his body began to change not into a wolf, but something smaller, weaker. When the transformation ended, a common Omega wolf stood where the Alpha had been. "Live as what you despised most, she declared. Maybe you'll learn empathy, though I doubt it. My queen, Zephyr murmured with dark approval. Remind me never to anger you. Before she could respond, his guards returned with 37 females, wolves, but also witches, fae, and other supernatural beings Ragnar had collected. Many were pregnant, all were traumatized, and every single one stared at Seraphina with desperate hope. You're free, Seraphina announced, her voice gentle now. All of you, go where you wish, or stay under my protection. The choice is yours. The Alpha Queen protects all species? A young witch asked in amazement. The Alpha Queen protects all who need it, Seraphina confirmed. This is revolution, Alpha Thorn whispered. The High Council will never accept. The High Council is dissolved, Zephyr announced. Or did you forget that as Alpha King, I have that authority? A new council will be formed, with equal representation from all ranks and species. You planned? This, Aldrich accused, staring at Zephyr with dawning horror at what he'd lost. You've been waiting for a moonsinger to help you tear down the establishment. I've been waiting for her, Zephyr corrected. The revolution is her choice. I'm just here to ensure she lives long enough to make it. Seraphina turned to face her former pack, and they collectively stepped back. She wasn't the Omega they'd abused anymore. She was something far more dangerous. Someone with power who remembered every cruelty. Ironwood Pack, she addressed them formally. You have a choice. Accept the new order and work toward redemption, or resist and face judgment for years of systematic abuse. You can't judge us, Thessaly shrieked desperately. You're nobody, just an Omega playing dress-up. Seraphina tilted her head. Aldrich, tell me, can you still feel where our bond used to be? He paled, his hand going to his chest. It burns. My wolf won't stop howling. That burning is your wolf? Recognizing what you rejected. It will never stop. Every time you see me thriving, every time you hear of my accomplishments, that burn will intensify. She smiled coldly. That's not my curse. That's your wolf's shame. She addressed the crowd again. Those who stand with the new order, step forward now. Melody moved first, then the other hidden Omegas. Then surprisingly, Garrett and several other warriors who'd always seemed uncomfortable with the abuse. Within minutes, 3/4 of the gathered wolves had stepped forward. The dawn comes soon, Zephyr noted, studying the eastern horizon, as the first rays of dawn painted the sky crimson, illuminating Seraphina's transformed figure. Aldrich made one last desperate play. If you're truly the moon singer of prophecy, he called out, his wolf's anguish making his voice crack, then prove it. The legends say a true moon singer can heal the soul. Broken. My mother has been catatonic since my father died. If you can wake her, I'll accept your authority. Several wolves gasped. Luna Margaret had been in a grief-induced coma for 3 years, unresponsive to healers or magic, absent during all of Seraphina's suffering. That's manipulation, Zephyr growled, using his mother's suffering. I'll do it, Seraphina interrupted, surprising everyone. But not for you, Aldrich. For her. They moved to the Packhouse Infirmary, a procession of hundreds now, as word spread. Luna Margaret lay still as death, her once vibrant form wasted to near skeletal. Seraphina approached slowly, studying the former Luna. Then she began to hum not a song of power, but a lullaby her own mother used to sing. Soft, gentle, full of love and memory. Luna Margaret's eyes fluttered. Seraphina increased the volume slightly, weaving in harmonics that spoke of spring after winter, dawn after the longest night. The watching crowd held their breath as color returned to the Luna's cheeks. "Thomas?" Luna Margaret whispered, her voice creaky from disuse. "No, he's gone." Her eyes focused on Seraphina, then widened. "Celeste? But you died." "I'm her daughter," Seraphina said gently. "Seraphina, the Omega," Margaret breathed. Then her face crumpled with shame. "Oh, child, what we did to you!" "I was too lost in grief to stop it, but I knew. I always knew." She struggled to sit up, her eyes taking in Seraphina's crown, her markings, the gathered crowd, the prophecy. "You're the Luna Regina, the queen of all moons." "Mother, you're confused," Aldrich started. "No," Margaret cut him off sharply. "I'm clear for the first time in years." She turned to Seraphina. "Your mother saved my life once. Did you know that? A rogue attack when I was pregnant with Aldrich. She sang them to sleep, every last one." "Why did you let them bind her power then?" Seraphina asked, no accusation in her voice, just curiosity. "Fear," Margaret admitted. "The same fear that made us diminish you. We were terrified of what we couldn't control." She looked at her son with disappointment, "And that fear made us monsters." "Touching reunion," a sardonic voice interrupted, but irrelevant. Everyone turned to find 3 figures in black robes, the High Council's executioners, whom Zephyr had warned about. "The High Council may be dissolved," the lead executioner said, "but its final order stands. Any moon singer must be eliminated for pack stability. You're welcome to try." Zephyr stepped forward, shadows coiling. "Not you, Shadow King. Your mate's already dead. You can't kill what doesn't live." The executioner pulled out a moonstone blade, the only weapon that could permanently kill a moonsinger by severing their connection to the lunar force. "No!" Aldrich shouted, surprising everyone by stepping between Seraphina and the blade. "I reject the council's authority. Stand aside, boy. I was wrong," Aldrich said, not moving, his wolf finally quiet in the face of protecting what it had lost. "I rejected my mate for power, for tradition, for fear, but I won't let you kill her for existing." The executioner raised the blade, prepared to go through Aldrich. Seraphina began to sing. This wasn't like her previous songs. This was something primeval, something that bypassed ears entirely and spoke directly to the soul. Every wolf present from Alpha to Omega felt their wolves respond, howling in harmony. The executioners tried to resist, but their robes began to burn away, revealing the binding marks that enslaved them to the council's will. Seraphina's song targeted those marks, her voice becoming a key that unlocked their chains. "Free!" one executioner gasped, dropping his blade. "We're free. The council bound you?" Zephyr's voice was deadly quiet. "For centuries," another confirmed. "Forced to kill any threat to their power. Moonsingers, shadow walkers, dream weavers. We eliminated them all. No more," Seraphina declared, her crown blazing. "The age of fear ends now." She turned to address everyone. "Send word to all 7 territories. Any bound soul seeking freedom, any rejected wolf seeking acceptance, any creature seeking sanctuary, they will find it here. We're not just changing the hierarchy, we're rebuilding from ash." "And those who resist?" Alpha Thorn asked. "Will face the combined might of the Shadow King and the Moonsinger," Zephyr said, taking Seraphina's hand, "though I suspect most will fall in line rather quickly." "You still need to complete the claiming," Elder Mordecai reminded them. "Without it, the bond remains incomplete." Seraphina looked at Zephyr, this dangerous, beautiful creature who'd waited centuries for her song. How do we complete it? His smile was pure sin. You sing my true name while I speak yours. But be warned, once done, it can't be undone. We'll be bound beyond death itself. Trying to scare me off? Trying to ensure you understand? I'm not a temporary choice. I'm forever. She lifted her chin. Then let's make it official. Under the full witness of 5 packs and the rising sun, Seraphina sang Zephyr's true name, not the one he wore for the world, but the deep, resonant sound that was carved into his very essence. As her voice wove through octaves that shouldn't exist, shadows and light began to dance together, creating something entirely new. Kaelin Zephyr Shadowmorn, she sang, each syllable making reality ripple. Alpha of the eternal night, guardian of the forgotten, king of shadows and sorrow, I claim you as mine. Zephyr's eyes blazed pure gold as he spoke in return. Seraphina Celeste Night Whisper, last of the moon singers, voice of the silenced, breaker of chains, queen of song and starlight, I bind myself to you beyond time, beyond death, beyond the ending of all things. The moment their vows completed, the world exploded with light. Every wolf present shifted involuntarily, howling in unison as primordial magic rewrote the very fabric of pack law. Seraphina and Zephyr rose into the air, surrounded by spiraling shadows and silver light that merged into something unprecedented twilight itself made manifest. When they touched ground again, both bore matching marks, crescent moons intertwined with shadows on their forearms, glowing with subtle power. The Luna Regina bond, Elder Mordecai whispered in awe. It hasn't been seen for 1,000 years, but the transformation wasn't complete. Seraphina turned to face her former pack one last time. Aldrich Stormclaw, you rejected me for Thessaly Goldmane. That choice stands. Live with it. I know, Aldrich said quietly, the fight gone from him, his wolf finally accepting its loss. I'll spend my life regretting it. Good, she said simply. Use that regret to be better. She addressed Thessaly next. You have 2 choices. Serve under Melody, as she learns to lead with compassion, or leave these territories forever. Serve my Omega sister? Thessaly's voice broke. Serve your Luna, Seraphina corrected. I'm appointing Melody as the new Alpha of Ironwood Pack. The crowd erupted in shocked murmurs, but Melody stood tall, her Omega status no longer a shame, but a strength. This is the new way, Seraphina announced, her voice carrying to every wolf in the 7 territories through the pack bonds. Power isn't determined by birth or brute strength, but by wisdom, compassion, and courage. Any who cannot accept this are free to leave. Some did leave, about 12 wolves who couldn't imagine a world where Omegas could be Alphas. But hundreds stayed, eager to see what this new world might become. My queen, Zephyr murmured, pulling her against him as the crowd began to disperse. Ready to reshape the world? She looked at the wolves around her former Omegas, standing tall, rigid Alphas learning to bow, primordial enemies considering peace, and smiled. We already have. 6 months later, the 7 territories had transformed beyond recognition. Pack rankings, based on merit, rather than birth. Interspecies councils promoting cooperation. And at the center of it all, a queen who sang hope into existence daily. And sometimes, on quiet nights, wolves would hear 2 voices singing in harmony, shadow and starlight, power and compassion reminding them that even the rejected could rise to rule the world. The Omega had become the Alpha Queen, and her song had just begun.